gentlemen, hello Hamburg, what's up? What's up? Hamburg, meine Perla. You guys are my pearl. I'm so excited to be here today. Philip, what an amazing show. You guys look beautiful out there. The content has seemed to be amazing. I'm going to sit this down and begin. My name is Bonin Bough, and I am the Chief Media and E-commerce Officer for Mondelez International. I'm not the CMO, that's my boss. Don't let her know that Philip called me that, or I'll be fired, and you won't see me here again. So let's just focus, people, let's focus. What I want to talk to you today about is this idea of hackonomy, and the notion of how do we create value by breaking things. And I want to take you back to an earlier day. So if you were a marketing executive in the 1950s, and I came into your office and I said, you know what, I really want you to invest in this thing called television. You'd laugh me out of your office and you'd tell me, you know what, I don't need your television. This thing called radio works really well for me. But what's interesting is that three brave marketers, Kraft, Unilever, and P&G, decided to jump into TV early because what they saw was that consumer consumption began to eclipse where organizational investment was in television. And as a result of that, they built competitive advantage that grew their business for the next 60 years. And I would argue that we are in the midst of the exact same thing. In fact, 23% of media is consumed on a mobile device, but less than 1% of spending actually goes to mobility right now. Which means that the world looks something like this, right? This is the boardroom. There's probably the CEO in the front that says, you know what? I think we need a mobile strategy. And then finally somebody looks up from their mobile device very distracted and says, I'm sorry, but did you say something? But what's interesting is this is not just an example of boardrooms. It's actually an example of society at large. We have become the most distracted society in human history. But what I love about humans is we'll never admit that we're wrong. We'll never tell you that we're distracted. We'll tell you, no, keep talking to me while I text because I'm doing something I like to call multitasking. Yes, I'm multitasking, but in reality, they're lying to you. There was a study that was done by the American Psychiatric Association. And what they did was they took two groups. They asked one group to use their mobile phone and multitask, and they asked the second group to smoke marijuana. And there was a 10-point drop in IQ of those who use mobile phones to multitask, which was twice as much as those that smoke marijuana. So the point here, people, is that you're better off being a pothead than pretending that you can multitask. But even in the, what? Yes, a few people in the front are. Sorry, I don't condone that. My point is, even in front of these facts, when I tell senior leaders, they still ask me the same question. They say, but Bonin, is mobile at scale? I said, good question. So I did a little bit of research. Turns out there are 7 billion people on Earth. 5.1 billion own a cell phone, but only 4.2 billion own a toothbrush. Which means there are a billion people on this planet that didn't get the text message of the importance of hygiene. That's what I'm just saying. It also means that if we believe toothbrushes are at scale, then clearly mobile phones are. What's more interesting is that the pace of growth that we've seen from these channels. So it took 2 years to reach 50 million consumers, but it took radio, 38, TV, you can read the numbers. What's interesting is this is just the iPhone, which is arguably probably the third most important OS as we move forward. It'll probably go Android, Microsoft. Any Microsoft people in the room? Raise your hand. Yeah, I just say that for you guys. It probably won't be Microsoft, but I just want to make you guys feel happy about yourself, right? No, I'm just kidding. It probably will be. Anyway, more phones are turned on every single day than babies are born. And so the pace at which we're seeing these platforms adopted is what's shocking. I love this slide. It says, honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. Even our religious institutions understand the importance of mobility, but yet big organizations fail to react. How many people in here have ever felt that their phone was vibrating, but when they reached in their pocket to look at it, it wasn't? Raise your hand. Raise your hands high. That has to be everybody in the audience. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It happens to me all the time. I think it's happening right now. It's not just you. It's actually a disease, and it's called phantom vibration syndrome. And they say that people who experience this have a tactile hallucination that's very similar to meth addicts, drug addicts. There's other studies that show that using social media in your mobile phone is as addictive as cocaine, which means means that Facebook and Twitter are just gateway drugs to some guy in a dark alley saying, oh, just send me 140 characters. Oh, they changed the limit. Never mind. Oh, just give me a status update. I'm dying for a status update. And while we're strung out on this thing called mobility, we have this man to blame. This man, Martin Cooper, nice white-haired gentleman, in the early 80s invented the mobile phone. But what's interesting is what he thought he was inventing was a device for us to transmit voice wirelessly. But what he didn't realize was that he was creating a world of connected devices that would transform humanity, society, and business at large. Bain did a study, and they showed that by 2020, every single consumer packaged good that's sold in a supermarket will be connected to the internet somehow. We sell over 6 billion packages a month, which means as I look at ourselves, we're the largest snack food company in the world with some of the most amazing brands, Milka, Cadbury, Oreo, Wheaton's, Triscuit, Ritz, I can go on and on. When I look at ourselves, it means that we might become one of the world's largest technology companies. But we don't look like the world's largest technology company. We don't run around on scooters like Google. We're not hip and cool like Snapchat. We do use Facebook at work now, so maybe that counts for something. But my point is how are we going to build models and train a next generation to unlock the potential power that these devices have put in every single person's hand? And that's what wakes me up every single day, because what I worry is that the institutions that are supposed to be graduating the next leaders are not preparing them for the generation that lies ahead. Less than 1% of course descriptions from the top 100 business schools even use the word mobile, emerging, or digital technology. So we're graduating MBAs into the world that aren't prepared for this next generation of leadership. And then they enter into the doors of organizations that look like mine, and we tell them, we want innovation, drive innovation. But in reality, what we want is incrementality. Don't take risk. Do what we've always done, just do it slightly better. Well, that doesn't transform organizations. That doesn't disrupt industries. So how do we begin to think about how we're going to transform our organizations for this next generation? So what I did was I began to go and look, and I said, what are the most disruptive organizations on the planet, and how do I understand what makes them move? So first of all, what's interesting is that these companies, and I guess Uber should be on here, and Airbnb, and you name it, so on and so forth, have been able to create value in shorter periods of time than organizations that have been on the planet for over 100 years. In fact, Radio Shack is no longer here with us, right? So Radio Shack actually died off about 6 months ago. What else is interesting is that it happens to have nothing to do with the amount of time that the organization was around. So here's a mailbox that was bought in less than 4 months for $100 million. I'll take that, $100 million in 4 months. I'll take that all day long. It also has nothing to do with the number of people. So here are 13 people who created Instagram who sold it for $1 billion, right? I'll take that too, by the way. It also has nothing to do with the industry specifically. We are now beginning to see all types of industries be transformed. The fourth industrial revolution, the transformation of the industrial complex by platforms like MakerBot that was sold for $403 million. It also has nothing to do with geography. In fact, there are over 100 places on this planet that are similar to Silicon Valley. Silicon Alley, Silicon Lane, Silicon Beach, Silicon River, Silicon Forest. First of all, with all this intelligence, come up with something more than just Silicon something, please. We owe it to ourselves. It also has nothing to do with age. What do all these kids have in common? They're all founders. In fact, the kid on your far left created an app called Bustin' Jeeber. You guys laugh. He gave a TED Talk. I'm here talking to you guys. I'm just saying that's kind of where my career is at. Anyway, it also has nothing to do with education. As you guys know, Peter Thiel is paying kids to not go to college. He's saying, don't go to college. I think I can create greater value out of your mind than even the educational system can. And he's right. When you look at folks like Zucks, who dropped out, when you look at folks like Sergey, when you look at folks like Karp from Tumblr, he didn't even finish high school, and he sold Tumblr for $1 billion. Now I know what you're saying. Look, Bonin, Marissa Mayer will buy anything. And you're probably right. Is Marissa here? Okay, we're actually friends. What's also interesting is that even rock stars believe that coders are today's rock stars, that the future of culture is actually being driven by this generation. by the creators that are in this room, and they're right. And when you begin to look at the magazines that represent cultural icons, you have things like Biz on Billboard, Rolling Stone, you have Campaign Magazine with Bonin Bough on the cover. You guys aren't familiar with that? Maybe you, that was such a, maybe you know this one a little bit better, right? Come on. Come on. You guys are a tough crowd. Wait. So I asked myself, what does it all mean? I'm sorry, guys. Before I answer the question, I do have to take a selfie because you're such a beautiful audience. So I apologize. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit. Let me see. Smile, everybody. Okay. All right. This side. Smile. On the right, on the left. Smile. Okay. There we go. All right. I'm going to tag every single one of you in that photo, by the way. It's going to take a while, but I'm determined to make this happen, people. So what does that mean? Well, I would argue that we have to look at an organization like Facebook to begin to see the unlock. And they talk about it as the hacker way. And they hack their way to the future. Less than 1% of their journey is already done. And so I would argue that we're entering into a world that I've been calling the hackonomy. How do you begin to create value by breaking things? How do you break the process that your organizations follow? How do you break the thinking of the people inside your organization? Even how do you break yourself? How do you transform yourself on a continual basis? How do you hack yourself? And what's interesting is some of the best things on the planet have been created by hacking. So the like button was created in 24 hours through a hackathon. Open Airplane, a new service that believes that they can be the Uber of airplanes or hacking the airplane industry. I travel all the time. I'm never like, oh, you know what? I need an airplane right now. Oh, 3 minutes? Okay, good. Not every hack will work. That's my point here. But some will. Here's a guy named Stellog who's actually hacking humanity. So what Stellog has done is he actually has an ear implanted into his arm that has a Bluetooth microphone. So when his phone rings, he can actually answer his phone by talking into his ear. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me now? Into his own ear, you get that. Okay, he also has speakers that are implanted into his mouth. So when somebody talks, he moves his mouth and it's like another voice is coming out. And what he's doing is he's hacking our notion of humanity, asking us, what does it mean in the future to actually be human? Here's somebody who's actually hacking it for a different cause, which is to transform disability into ability. His name is Hugh Hare. Hugh Hare's story is really simple. He was a world-renowned mountain climber, and at 17 years old, he got stuck on a mountain with a blizzard. His best friend died, and he lost both of his legs. At that time, he was a D student. He got his first pair of prosthetics. His brother, realizing how much he loved to climb, took him out a week later, and he climbed using his prosthetics, and he made a mistake, and he chipped one of his toes. But he realized he can actually climb better with now his prosthetics. So he began to set his mind to turning disability into ability. Now as a professor, a doctorate at MIT, he's the world's first bionic. He's created a pair of bionic limbs that he believes will sell for about $3,000, and it has an app that changes its tension. It's based on how the human leg operates. It's amazing, transformational. I spoke at an economist event where he spoke after me, and somebody from the crowd asked him, do you ever see a time when somebody would opt to have a bionic limb over their own human limb? He said, well, let me answer it this way. If you were 75 and your arthritic arm didn't operate like your 18-year-old arm did, what would you do? And it was a hush over the crowd like this, because at that moment, we began to realize that we might become more computer, more digital than we even are human. Those type of headwinds are upon us. So here's Amy Webb. She's actually hacking for a different cause as well, which is to find the love of her life. And she reverse engineered her social network using platforms like Tinder and found the love of her life and wrote a story about it. And so we're hacking every single aspect of the world of humanity. So what we have to ask ourselves as digital and online professionals, what do we have to hack? What do we have to change? And I would argue that we have to hack our entire notion of media. And here's how we as an organization have been approaching that transformation of media. First, we have to rethink mobility. Mobility is not just another channel. It's a personalized device that is with you every single moment of the day. To talk to a person on this device is so much different than to talk to them on television. Imagine if I'm sending you a text message as an organization and I don't understand the context that you're in. You're texting your daughter and she's not texting you back. You're worried that something happened, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, 4 Ys, would you like to buy a cookie? No, I don't want to buy a cookie. I don't want to buy a cookie right now. So we have to understand this device in a totally different way. It also is the only device that interacts with every other media. every other media on the planet. Real-time engagement. Real-time is not just about sending out a tweet during the Super Bowl that wins the Super Bowl. Although I'll take that. No, what it's about is how do you transform organizations to begin to deliver consumer experiences in real time, products that are based on real consumer insights, real consumer knowledge, and deliver that in real time. How do we create those organizations? Monetizing media. There was a day when we owned media, when we owned the television shows, when we owned the soap operas. You know what that meant? That meant we actually had to be publishers. You know how many people tell me, oh, brand is publisher, brand is publisher. And I'm like, no, it's not. You just put a logo on and you're spending money. That's not a publisher. Publishers actually get paid for creating quality content that somebody either wants to buy or advertise against. A totally new notion of quality. So how do we begin to monetize our media? How do we begin to allocate the dollars necessary to live up to the aspirations that we tell ourselves? I want to be the #1 mobile market in the world. But when people come to get budget, you're like, oh, no. That budget is allocated for television, not for mobile. How do we begin to spend where it really matters? How do we begin to look at cross-screen? And how do we begin to look at culture versus cluster? We no longer need to buy 18 to 34. How do we begin to buy cultural ties that tie people together? Somebody who lives in Hamburg is vastly different. I don't know if this is going to work, this analogy, than somebody who lives in Berlin who's I don't know. Anyway, you get my point. Culture versus cluster. We started off by dedicating ourselves to spending 10% of all of our all of our media dollars in mobility. We announced that about 2 years ago. We have been rated the #1 mobile marketer 2 years in a row. We also gave a pretty straight framework for the organization, which was, look, mobile can increase reach. Mobile can increase engagement. For us as an impulse company, mobile is at the point of buying, where you're buying a chocolate bar, where you're buying gum, where you're buying cookies. So impulse driving. And also mobile can create loyalty. If you think about how we sell products now, we basically drop the products off at the retailer, and we go, good luck, little cookie. I hope you sell, and that's it. But imagine being able to have them scan that pack when they enter store. Imagine being able to have a continual relationship with you. Mobility allows us to do that for the first time ever. Here's an example of a game. It's called Twist, Lick, and Dunk. The story of this game is really simple. 2 brand managers came into me. They said, we want to build a game on our gum business. I said, great, let me introduce you to some folks that build games. They said, no. We want to use agencies. I said, look, I love our agencies. They're our best friends, but they don't actually build games for a living. They said, no, trust us. One spent $65,000. Another one spent $250,000. One got 23,000 downloads. Another one got 40,000 downloads. I was so mad that I found a brand marketer that would partner with me, and we built this game for $250,000. But the difference was we said 3 things. 1, don't desecrate the Oreo, because if you do, I will hunt you down because I will be fired, and I don't like that. 2, if you can get the ritual of Twist, Lick, and Dunk in, then that's great. But the most important is number 3. I want you to make the game make money. So we found a game developer called Pickpock. Now we have 12 million downloads, 20 billion Oreos have been dunked. This game is actually cash positive. If you can see underneath the thumb, we actually sell ads inside the game. I'm actually made my money back and then some. And what's interesting is I remember being in the room and they said, would you mind if a competitive product advertised? I was like, are you kidding me? If they're stupid enough to put their ads on my game, I'll take that. Give me their money. So people play this for 2 minutes and 41 seconds, and we're beginning to build out our mobile platforms in ways. This is the #1 app in 12 countries, 250,000 daily active unique users. But holding yourself up to a different monetization standard means that you hold what you create to a different quality. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the work that we did around Oreo and Daily Twist, and I know this was mentioned, the Oreo Dunk in the Dark. But what that actually turned into was us building an entire process to learn how to do creative in real time. So here's an example of a product called Nilla Wafers. What's interesting about Nilla is it was called an entrepreneurial brand, which means you don't have any money, good luck, be entrepreneurial. We'll give you a nice title, entrepreneurial brand. So what we did was we said we're only going to use Facebook. And we start off with 5 different creative concepts, and we evolve them as people actually engage with them. So instead of sitting in a room and looking at a piece of creative and saying, this will be it, take it to the top of the mountain and share it with my disciples, they will listen. We actually ask them to engage, to find out which one actually works and optimize over time. This is the one that came out on top. It's called Momisms. The first one was the best families are like fudge, mostly sweet with lots of nuts. Then we began to evolve that. Here's the next one. Good moms let you lick the beaters, great moms turn them off. If you want breakfast in bed, sleep in the kitchen. We began to learn that if you put a face, a depiction of a mom. Then we got really cultural with it. Hey, Jay-Z, thanks for stocking your villa with Nilla. And then your kid's a royal, mine's a royal pain, as you can imagine, for the birth. What's interesting is that with $620,000, we were able to move a $140 million business. It's actually 9.8%, but legal makes me round down. So 9% for the crowd here. Oops, sorry. Can I go back? Then we began to move real time into video, and I'm going to show a quick example of the first learning that we had. So here, watch this.
A little brought to you by credit is usually it. But tonight, we have a product too important. Because tonight, it's Wheat Thins. Wheat Thins, crunch is calling. And the call is coming from inside your mouth. Get out of there. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Steven, how important could Wheat Thins be? Yeah, I used to think that way too. Until I received this actual memo from Wheat Thins, detailing for my sponsorship purposes what the role of Wheat Thins is in our lives. And let me tell you something. You think you know Wheat Thins? You. You and the cracker you wrote in on. Okay? Now listen up.
So this goes on for 7 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But what's interesting is that this was the first time that Viacom allowed us to use what they call clip and share, where we could clip a 15 to 30 second piece and we could share it out. And you can imagine what happened here was we had gone through 3 iterations and we weren't happy. Colbert finally called and said, you know what, I'm just going to read the brand brief on TV, take it or leave it. And we had a brave marketer who said, take it, we're going to go. And we were sitting there with the war room, clipping and cutting, and you can imagine it took off. And when we stepped back and we looked at the measurement, what we saw was Twitter plus television transformed our reach, 4 to 5x. So we began to say, how do we, instead of it happening by accident, how do we begin to plan campaigns that actually interact with every single aspect of the digital and traditional ecosystem? And here's an example of one of those type campaigns.
If I had to describe my parents, my dad would be like the smart one and everything. And then my papa would be, he's a funny one.
It's just me and him. We kind of take it as, all right, this is all we got. This is our team right here, and nothing's gonna break this team up.
American families have changed.
Sometimes we get looks just from being a mixed family.
And while they may look different, they're still as wholesome as ever. And who better to say this than the beloved brand American families grew up with?
Honey Maid. Everyday wholesome snacks for every wholesome family.
This campaign was the first time an American brand had so clearly stood up for all families.
This is wholesome.
And the nation took notice.
Honey Maid, featuring both interracial and gay parents in an ad for graham crackers that's been viewed more than 5 million times.
Honey Maid's hashtag, this is wholesome, on fire.
But unfortunately, a lot of people didn't agree with our message. We were threatened with a boycott. We were called sinful.
Even the right-wing conservative group 1 Million Moms calling the ad a, quote, attempt to normalize sin.
But instead of backing down, we asked 2 artists to take every negative tweet, comment, and post, print them out, roll them up, and turn hate into love. And the best part was all the positive messages we received. Over 10 times as many. With over 270,000 shares on social media, this simple video earned over 250 million impressions from social and PR alone. And for the week it launched, it was the most shared commercial in the world. Perhaps a chart showing Google searches for Honey Maid over the last 10 years says it best. Honey Maid. In less than 1 month, it went from a cracker people love to a brand people love.
No, Gary O'Shifskin is the brand manager behind that. He is a special talent. We're very lucky to have him. I'm going to hurry up because I'm running out of time here. So let's move on really quickly. Here's another piece that we did. I talked to you about real time, and what I said was it's not about just real-time placements or social media engagements, but how do you actually create products in real time? Here's a little experiment that we did at South by Southwest on a product that you guys know called Oreo.
South by Southwest Interactive in Austin, Texas. We invited festival goers to the Trending Vending Lounge to participate in an experiment. What would happen if your Oreo cookie joined the social network? Our prototype vending machines take what's trending on Twitter and turns those trends into custom Oreos. Using unique transparent touchscreens, users scroll through a list of trending topics, each related to a particular flavor combination and pattern. Advanced algorithms translate the tweets into custom cookies. In all, there are about 10,000 possible combinations. Users can also mash up two trends to further customize their experience. The resulting cookie combines elements of the two original trends. Once the user hits Make Cookie, the real magic happens. Using some repurposed 3D printing technology and a pneumatic pump system, we've enabled festival attendees to watch as their custom cookie is robotically printed and assembled. The final cookie is dropped into a cup, vended, and is now ready to enjoy.
So, that little experiment turned into a custom product that we ended up creating and selling this Christmas, where you could go online, you could actually customize the package, you could send a note to a consumer. It was the first time in 103 years that you were actually able to order a cookie direct to consumer. This is my get off the stage music. Okay, real quick. This only happens if you have the right culture. And so one of the things that we believe in is how do you play the music louder or hack culture. I'm gonna skip. We launched the first mobile accelerator called Mobile Futures, which ties brand marketers to brands. But what I really want to do is plug this last thing, which is our Shopper Futures Accelerator launching here in Germany. And it's the future in 90 days, and they're looking for startups to submit. And then very end is that I have a new book coming out called Txt Me, where I allow consumers to text me directly so we can explore the impact that mobility has had on society at large. So at the end of the day, Alan Kay said the best way to predict the future is to invent it, and I would argue that the best way to predict the future is to hack it. Sorry about going a little over, but I like the music. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hamburg! Whoa!